Thank you for joining us. After 19 months, the U.S. is reopening its land border with Canada on November 8th. That's welcome news for many Canadians, as is the fact that those with mixed doses will be considered fully vaccinated by U.S. officials. Public Safety Minister Bill Blair is here in just a little bit. Lots of questions to ask him, including what to make of vaccination rates in the U.S. When it comes to states along Canada's border, only Vermont and Maine have reached a fully vaccinated rate of 70%. Most border states are hovering between 50 and 65% of people fully vaccinated. A few are still at less than half. And of the top 5 U.S. states with the highest infection rate, 4 are along the border with Canada. North Dakota is one of those border states. Republican Congressman Kelly Armstrong has been pressuring President Joe Biden to reopen the border to Canadians. I spoke with him a bit earlier. And Congressman Armstrong joins us now. Nice to see you, Congressman.
Thanks for having me on.
So we are starting to learn more details, obviously, about how this is going to work. We now obviously have a date, it's November 8th. I think there are still some outstanding questions. Do you have any concerns about how this is going to work, or do you think it's going to be pretty seamless?
Well, I'm hopeful it's seamless, and anything is better than nothing. When you come from a state like mine in North Dakota, we just rely so heavily and have such a great relationship with our neighbors to the north. But I'm assuming, as is all things that deal with the border, we've left up to our own devices and the people on the ground. I think it'll work pretty well. We just need to keep probably Ottawa and DC out of it as much as possible.
Okay, in August, Canada reopened its border, as you know, to fully vaccinated Americans. The U.S. did not make that change. What was the impact on your state in North Dakota?
We have, 650,000 plus visits a year. My old hometown, Grand Forks, North Dakota, about 25% of our sales come from Canadian residents. Tons of people that farm on both sides of the border transact over there. It was a really disappointing decision, particularly when how we were dealing with other countries and not our best friends and our closest allies. So it was frustrating as an understatement.
It was also kind of strange from this perspective because the rates of vaccination are largely higher in Canada than in a lot of states along the border. Did anyone ever explain to you why they had made that decision?
No, we couldn't get an explanation. I got to question our Commerce Secretary about it, and she was, she genuinely seemed as, concerned and frustrated as we were. So I'm just happy it's moving forward. But no, we never really did get a good answer. And we had some different issues in rural central America. There's resorts in northern Minnesota that the only way you can get to them is through Canada. While in that area of Canada and Minnesota, it's almost impossible to not social distance. So these decisions just weren't taking into effect what was really happening on the ground.
You mentioned farming, and I understand there's a situation in your state where there are farmers who even have land on both sides of the border. What did they do in those situations?
They were working, trying to do it, frustrating. When they were doing the essential travel, I think they were having a pretty good time doing that, but they have family members and friends on both sides. I know people who haven't seen close family members for over a year now, and it just doesn't make any sense. But the ag side and the essential stuff, I think they got that worked out pretty well. But for our communities and for the communities north of the border, that retail traffic and that money that those communities on both sides rely on just hasn't been there.
Yeah, I as I told you, I'm from Manitoba. I remember going to Grand Forks shopping for day trips, which was no longer obviously something that people used to do. You said that you're going to work with Governor Burgum to make sure that these restrictions are fully lifted. So what does that mean from your perspective? What else needs to happen here?
Well, I really believe that, particularly if we're going to deal with the vaccinated, you show a vaccine card, you're good. Obviously people have to have some personal responsibility. If you're sick, if you don't feel well, we're going to be living with this and dealing with it, and we can't continue to do it. But we need to be able to make it not only that you can cross the border, but that you can cross it in a way where people are comfortable doing it. Lifting the restrictions doesn't work if it turns into a 37-minute stop every time and all of those different issues. Where we're at, we're really good at it. We have a lot of walleye fishermen on both sides. We have a lot of waterfowl hunting on both sides. We deal with crossing the border all the time, and we know how to do it. So like I said, let our guys on the ground figure it out, and I think it'll go well.
One of the things that Canada is keeping in place, as you probably know, are PCR tests. You still have to have a negative PCR test to come back into Canada. Obviously, that is costly. That is something that Canadians might still make them think twice. What do you make of the fact that our government wants to keep that in place?
Well, I'm hopeful that we continue the technology and deal with these testing. I mean, I think where you really see the issue, one is the cost, right, and all of that. But if you get an airline delay in the 72 hours, I've flown to your great country since this has happened, and you should see the people that get frustrated because of no fault of their own. Now they can't travel because their test is 35 minutes late, 35 minutes too late, or those types of things. But I honestly think there are so many cheaper and better ways to do this than. I've had the Q-tip into my brain as well. It's uncomfortable and all of those things. I think we need to be able to develop. If Canada is going to require a test, I think we have to figure out a better way and a quicker and a cheaper way to do it.
A rapid test, is that where you think we should be headed, perhaps?
I mean, I think if you're vaccinated and have a rapid negative test, I think we're trying to make perfect the enemy of the good. And it just doesn't work for our economies. And I think that's a perfect example, right? If you know you have to go get the PCR test and you just want to go down to Grand Forks shopping for a day, I'm not sure that these restrictions as they are now really open that up in the same way. So what we want is we want to be able to continue to work in commerce with our partners, and whatever we can do to do that is what I want to see happen.
19 months it will have been, probably, I guess, 20 by the time the border actually reopens. Did you ever think that this would go on so long and that you would have to be dealing with this in your state for so long?
No, and some of it is, we're watching this all across the world break out, and whether it's the Delta variant and COVID and all of that, and just some of it is I think we didn't really, and there's probably plenty of blame to go around on both sides. I hope a lot more people appreciate the relationship we have, because us on the northern border and people that have dealing with those things my whole life really do appreciate it. And I hope other people recognize it now, because it shouldn't have lasted this long. There were ways we could have done this earlier and better.
Do you think that, again, as I said, Canada obviously moved faster on this than Washington did. Do you think that Washington missed the mark here, that they could have done things faster?
Yeah, I do, and and it's not just North Dakota, Minnesota. And by the way, it's not a typically partisan issue. I mean, anybody who represents those areas in upstate New York, all of those places, we've been on them on the administration since the get-go to get this open as quick as possible.
Okay, Congressman, good to get your perspective from North Dakota today. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks.